overall team leader for the TA, and I'll be taking you through the various sessions today. But just a warm welcome on behalf of all of the TA team to all of you today, and looking forward to the discussions that follow. So before we say much more, I'd like to hand over to Ms. Karma Yangsom, our project officer for this TA. So Karma is the Principal Environment Specialist in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department. Karma, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon from Manila. And as mentioned by Ben, a very warm welcome to everybody, especially our stakeholders and government officials from the cities and the countries that are participating in this TA. So I just want to convey two main messages that in the discussions today, which is a very important sort of part of the TA activities, where we would like to share the findings so far and get your feedback. And I would really request you to please actively participate and focus on two main things. One is focus on priority issues, which is within your city, that's one. And the second one is if you can, when you provide your feedback, if you can think about things which are actionable, which are feasible, and which can be acted on. So I think if you can please keep these 2 points in your mind during the discussions. And again, a very warm welcome, and I encourage you to please all very actively participate. Thank you very much, and I hand over back to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Karma. So just to kick things off, I'd like to just give a short presentation, really just to give you a bit of an overview of what we're here to discuss today, but also just a bit of a recap on the TA objectives and the activities that we've been undertaking, the objectives of this workshop, the agenda for the session. So you should hopefully have seen a draft, but we've had a few changes in recent days, and really then just an initial high-level overview of the progress so far. But then in some of the later sessions, we'll be picking up some of those activities in more detail. Next slide, please. So we were looking back fondly at the pictures from the Inception workshop back in October 2019. Many of the same participants are still here, some have changed. But obviously when we met back then, we couldn't quite have foreseen what the last few years might have held with COVID and the challenges that the pandemic have created. However, I think we're very pleased that we're still here today to be able to talk to you and explain some of the progress that we've made. And in many places, we've been able to make some really valuable and significant progress. So for today's workshop, really what we wanted to do was to actually spend most of the time discussing findings and learnings from the activities. So to talk through some of the diagnostic assessments, the policy and technology options we've been looking at, and where the recommendations are heading, to share some of the experiences on Clean Air Action Plan development that we've been going through. But then also equally as important to give you a bit of an overview of the technology and policy transfer activities and outputs that we have planned. And in particular, just to flag that we have a policy workshop and technology fair taking place next week, but we have a session later on today to tell you a bit more about that. And then we'll provide at the end a bit of an overview of the next steps until the end of the project. Next slide, please. So I think most, if not all of you know already the overall objectives of the TA, but I think just to quickly recap, it's very much focused on addressing gaps in capacity around delivering air quality improvements. So as part of the activities, there's a significant capacity building element, trying to work very closely with yourselves and others within the cities, working through our local city coordinators and teams on the ground to identify policy actions and technologies. And ultimately, that's leading through to building the business case for investment through a city level clean air action plan. And these will be accompanied with investment plans so that they can then be taken forward for implementation. And of course, with any environmental action plan, there's a wider range of objectives. So sharing knowledge and experience, and today's workshop is part of that. Mainstreaming of clean air action planning into other areas, so that they're more likely to be a success, and also maximizing any co-benefits, so ensuring that any actions taken are also beneficial for other areas, whether that's climate change, sustainable development, and so on. Next slide, please. And of course, the core sort of objective really is the development and implementation of clean air action plans for the 7 cities there. So we have Faridpur in Bangladesh, Erdenet in Mongolia, Peshawar and Sialkot in Pakistan, La Trinidad in the Philippines, and Ho Chi Minh and Vinh Yen in Vietnam. And the delivery of the TA has very much focused around those 3 boxes at the bottom. So city level air quality assessments and studies, identifying the right types of technology and policy measures, and then bringing those together to prepare city level clean air action plans. Next slide, please. So that's very small, so apologies, but I'll just briefly talk through the agenda. So after I've finished here, really we want to move into the main session, as I said, for today, which is actually sharing how the experiences at a city level and the vision for the clean air action plans from each of our city coordinators. So we'll do it in 2 blocks as we've got there, with a short break in between. But we also want to invite reactions from relevant ADB and UCCRTF representatives as to how the clean air action plans and some of the actions that are being looked at can fit with wider priorities, wider programs that are ongoing in the country and the cities concerned. We then have some shorter sessions. So session 3 is an open discussion around the opportunities for strengthening and mainstreaming clean air actions into sectoral planning, but also development planning. And then the session 4 is really what I mentioned earlier about giving you an overview of the upcoming virtual policy workshop and technology fair. So we have colleagues from Clean Air Asia in China who will be taking us through the plans there. And then we'll talk really as we close for the session about next steps and activities until September 2022. Next slide, please. So I don't think I need to remind everyone about the workshop rules. We've done enough of these in the past few years, but it's very helpful for us if you can change your name on the Zoom call to also include your affiliation, just so that we know who you're representing and which organizations and countries you're coming from. Please raise questions throughout the sessions through the chat function. We will raise your questions to the speakers. There will also be opportunities to answer them live, some in written response. The chat function can be found at the bottom. We will be keeping an eye just to make sure microphones are muted, etc. And you would have had a warning that the session is being recorded. So both for our own notes, but also so that we can share the presentations and the discussions with colleagues that aren't able to join. And then we will be providing an evaluation form, which is also to help guide and get some of your views as to priorities for future sessions. Next slide, please. So the 3 main elements which tally very much with what I just discussed previously about, so output 1 is focused on really the sort of the scientific and evidence base for taking action. So air quality monitoring, assessment of emissions, assessment of current air quality status and management capacity, really trying to establish our baseline conditions. So in terms of health impacts, existing air quality policies and measures. We then use that for identifying what should be the right sorts of policy and technology solutions. So which activities should we be targeting, and then assessing those in terms of what their impacts may be, both in terms of costs, but also benefits. And then those outputs we're using to develop the clean air action plans themselves. And all across this, we're working very closely at a city level with the stakeholders there to ensure that it's feasible, it's realistic, but also it's effective and targeting really what's most needed. If you could just click on 1 to bring up the table at the bottom. So for the first 5 cities, just to give you a bit of an overview as to where we are with progress. For those 5 cities, the majority of output 1 has been completed. For Ho Chi Minh and Vinh Yen, we still have some sensitivity analysis to be completed on the air quality modeling assessment, so in terms of building in some new data. But for the other three cities, the assessments have now been completed. For output 2, where we start to look at the technology and policy measures, for La Trinidad, Erdenet and Faridpur, the first sort of round of assessments have been undertaken and the economic analysis. We still have, though, the workshop next week that I mentioned and a series of training events to be delivered. And then for Ho Chi Minh and Vinh Yen, the assessments are underway now, but still very much a work in progress. For the first 3 cities, the Clean Air Action Plans themselves now are under development, which is great news. And then for the Vietnamese cities, again, that will follow shortly. Next slide, please. So just in terms of the Pakistan cities, because of the COVID-19 delays and some of the challenges really faced there with data availability and engagement, we have adjusted the work plan slightly, which is why I've included them here on a separate slide. So if you could click on, please. So instead of a Clean Air Action Plan itself, we felt we needed to adjust the work plan. So the first step is assessing the city's air quality management system using Clean Air Asia's Clean Air Scorecard tool. And we can share more details of that as well later on and provide some links, but also then preparing a roadmap for Clean Air Action Plan development. So rather than the plan itself, actually set out the stages and the steps to take it part of the way there. So consolidating city information we have on strategic air quality management areas, identifying issues and challenges, but also what are the potential solutions and recommendations that could be taken forward for addressing these and for improving air quality management, and also looking at how we can mainstream air quality and climate measures in urban development. And as a sort of further step, we've got some ongoing discussions to look at how we could support some of the priority actions that have come out from the national level Pakistan Clean Air Plan. So slightly adjusted work plan, but still some broadly similar activities, just with a slightly revised endpoint, I guess, to say. And we'll talk through further for each city exactly where we are in the next session. Next slide, please. I think that's the last one. So that's the sort of the initial overview and introduction. I'll just pause briefly there before moving on to see if there are any sort of questions or comments in the chat initially on sort of progress and where we are. I think Mark, so there was just a reminder about the translation channels, but Dang or another, if you were able just to sort of provide the details in case people do not already know.
Thank you for that, Ben. So I've sent via chat some instructions on the interpretation channel. So the participants are encouraged to hover over your Zoom toolbox, and then you'll see there the option to turn on your interpretation channel. We have channels for Vietnamese and Mongolian. So please head over to the function and select the appropriate channel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Much appreciated. So if there are no sort of initial comments or questions, although please keep them coming in as we go, so I can respond as we go as well in writing or verbally if you have any questions about the overall project progress and some of the activities. But if not, I would suggest we move on then to the main event. So really this session is about actually the cities themselves and understanding some of the activities that have been going on. And so to sort of kick us off, I'd like to invite Dr. Mark Brumfield, Technical Director at Ricardo Energy and Environment, who's also our lead TA Air Quality Assessment Specialist, who's going to provide a bit of a framing presentation and an overview of where things stand with some of the analysis, and then we'll move into the city-specific presentations. So over to you, Mark, please.
Thank you, and greetings to everybody. really looking forward to this meeting. So I'm going to be providing a little bit of background as to the progress we've made overall with the project so far before handing over to our city coordinators to give some feedback on progress in the individual cities. If I could have the next slide, please. So I'm going to firstly talk through the technical and economic analysis that we've carried out to investigate air pollution issues in each of the cities, and going through the different steps in the assessment. I'll then talk briefly about the progress we've made in setting up workshops and coordinating and sharing information, listening to the views of stakeholders and working together to prepare clean air action plans. And then I'll be handing over to the city coordinators for their feedback. If you can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So starting with the technical and economic analysis, many people I think on this call have been involved in the monitoring program that we've been carried out. So this has been funded by the UCC RTF fund, and we've supplemented that with some contingency funds from the project. So we're really grateful for that funding, which has enabled us to deploy professional standard air quality sensors in 6 of the 7 cities. We put 2 or 3 units in 6 of the cities. So we'll put some pictures here to show the equipment being installed and operational in those cities. The instruments are professional standard air quality sensors. So that means they're not reference methods, but they are produced to a high standard and give robust data that we know we can rely on. So if you can go on to the next slide, please, and I'll just share some illustrative information on the type of information we're getting from these sensors. So we produce a web page type of summary report, and that provides summary statistics in the way that you can see in the table on the top right. It provides time series plots so we can see how the pollution levels have evolved over the time that we've been measuring levels of NO2, nitrogen dioxide, PM10 and PM2.5, also measuring sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide, and meteorological parameters, wind speed and wind direction in some of the cities as well. We also produce maps and analysis of the data, such as you can see in the left side, which shows the relationship between measured levels and wind speed and direction. And that's really useful to us to help us understand the sources of the pollution levels that we're measuring. So we do produce these reports as web pages. We are nearly at the end of that program now, but we are very happy to make these available to anybody who would like to see them. And if you're interested in that, please could you just put a message in the chat, or you can email me on the address that I've put on the screen there, mark.broomfield@ricardo.com. We'll be very happy to send these web pages to you. So that's the monitoring data. If I could have the next slide, please. The next step is to produce an emission inventory, and I'm not going to go through all this information in detail, but what we're trying to do is work out and understand and calculate the sources of air pollution from within the city. And we look at this for the pollutants that we've listed there: NOx, PM10, PM2.5, SO2. And you can see in this example for Faridpur in Bangladesh, you can see the different sources that contribute to different pollutants. So NOx, the main source is actually a power station, this a little way outside the city, whereas for particulate matter, brick kilns are a much more important source. And when we're looking at PM2.5, domestic combustion is also important. Just also to note that for Faridpur, the contribution of traffic to NOx emissions, for example, is relatively small at 11%, but I'll come on to that in a minute, because that doesn't necessarily mean that traffic is a small source. I think with the emission inventory, we have worked hard with our partners to use a combination of local data and international resources to put these inventories together. They're of varying quality. I think we don't have any illusions about that. Some of the data is reliable and very good. Some of the data is much more based on estimates and surrogate data and has less confidence. But we do think that for most of our cities, we've been able to identify the principal sources of air pollution. I think we're still behind that with Vinh Yen, and we are not able to go down this route for the Pakistan cities for the reasons that Ben mentioned. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So when we've got the emission inventory, we use that to carry out source apportionment work to understand what is the contribution of these sources to levels of air pollution in the city. And we use computer models for that. And let me just flag up that figure for traffic for Faridpur. So as I mentioned, the emissions contribution is about 11% to NO2, but the contribution to airborne concentrations is much higher at 74% in the city centre area. And that's because the pollution is occurring very close to where people live and work, and so the contribution is much greater. So if we want to make a difference to NO2 levels, even though the emissions are small, we really need to be focusing on dealing with traffic emissions in Faridpur. And that's just one example of what this source apportionment analysis can tell us. We have been able to validate the modelling work to some extent against the air quality monitoring data. That's a limited process because we only have 2 or 3 monitoring stations in each city, but that's really useful to add confidence where, particularly for sources where we're less sure about the emission inventory. So that's been a really valuable input from the monitoring equipment. So that's the source apportionment work that tells us which pollutants we need to look at to improve air quality in the cities. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. What we're then able to do is to look at the air pollution levels that we have forecast in each city. And here's an example for Erdenet. And what we can do is investigate the actual effects those levels of pollution are having. So a pollution concentration is just a number. It doesn't really mean anything to people. But when we start to talk about the effects that's having on people's health and well-being, then that can really begin to bring home the importance of dealing with air pollution in cities and starting to make a real difference to improve people's quality of life. So in this example for Erdenet, our calculations suggest we have about 125 early deaths every year in Erdenet due to air pollution, which is a significant impact, I think. And I've just highlighted the figure for restricted activity days. These are days when people can't work or go to school or do their normal activities because of air pollution. And again, our figures suggest that about 130,000 restricted activity days across the population of Erdenet. So that's an average of 2 or 3 days for every person maybe 1 or 2 days for every person in Erdenet every year. So that's to me is a really important finding. I think hopefully helps to communicate the importance of what we're doing. On the next slide, please. And then we're able to move on to that to value that and provide the figures like this, for example, for La Trinidad, which highlight the health impact or the health impact benefit of taking steps to improve air quality. So we have 4 options, 4 scenarios we've assessed for improving air quality, and this shows the economic value of the improvements that they would deliver. And we can add that into the mix when we're looking at the costs and benefits of these scenarios. Could I have the next slide, please? So we've been doing developing a series of workshops to prepare the clean air action plans, and we go through these steps to shortlist options to improve air quality. We model those options, we carry out the economic assessment that I've just showed you, and we're developing investment plans to support the clean air action plans. And so I won't go through the timetable there, but we are looking to complete draft clean air action plans for the 5 cities the focus of this work program during June and July this year. So that's coming up quite soon, with the final clean air action plan to follow on from review of the draft plans. I think the investment plan is a really important part of this, which hopefully will make the clean air action plans not just a wish list, but something that's genuinely deliverable. Could I have the next slide, please? That's implemented through a series of meetings with the cities, and we have a series of 6 meetings planned, supported by the policy and technology fair that Ben mentioned, and more specific training workshops that will follow on from that. So we're going through the program of meetings at the moment. Today's meeting is meeting 3 when we review progress to date, but we've had meetings to go through the sources in all 5 cities and to start to look at options for improvements, and then to consult on the draft and final draft clean air action plans. Could I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to now hand over to the city coordinators to give their feedback. We've asked the coordinators a series of questions to talk through progress in their cities. So city coordinators, I'll hand over to you in just a sec, and we're going to give each of you 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you a warning after 2 minutes, when there's 2 minutes and 1 minute to go, to ask you to wrap up your presentation. So if I could now hand over them, please, to Dang Espita, who I think is going to talk about the air quality progress that we've made in La Trinidad. So Dang, over to you, and I think you have 10 minutes to talk about the progress in La Trinidad. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you, Mark, for the kind introduction. So I'm Dang Casanova from Clean Air Asia and City Coordinator for the TA, particularly for the municipality of La Trinidad. So my presentation will focus on the Clean Air Action Plan for La Trinidad, Philippines. La Trinidad is the capital town of the province of Benguet, situated around 250 kilometers north of the capital city of Manila. It's part of the Baguio La Trinidad Itogon Sablan Tuba Tublay, or the BLIST area, designated as an airshed by the Philippine Department of Natural Resources and Environment. Next slide, please. So we know that for air pollution actions to be meaningful, to have meaningful and scaled impact, we want policies and programs to be coherent across levels of government. And for La Trinidad, we envision for its Clean Air Action Plan to be sustainable by, of course, considering all of the policy frameworks across governance levels and aligning the measures and the programs in the action plan to the strategies and frameworks of these regional and national level policies and programs. So in the left side of the slide, we illustrate that definitely in the development of the La Trinidad Clean Air Action Plan, we looked into what are the near-term, mid-term, and long-term priorities of policies and programs such as the Environmental Management Bureau, Cordillera Administrative Region Airshed Action Plan, the Integrated Air Quality Improvement Framework, which is governed and headed by the Environmental Management Bureau head office, wherein they are developing a 10-year National Air Quality Action Plan, and of course, the central legislation, the Philippine Clean Air Act, which mandates and governs all air quality related activities and programs in the country. Further, in La Trinidad, they have established, or they have in place, an Environment and Natural Resources Sustainable Management and Development Code, or the La Trinidad Environment Code, which instituted an Air Quality Technical Committee, or a technical working group, who oversees air quality management activities and has been overseeing the action plan development and its future implementation. Now, this mechanism will definitely facilitate efficient coordination within sectors and agencies relevant to the action plan implementation, as well as partnership with other non-government partners. Next slide, please. So the air quality diagnostic study for the municipality pointed to transport as the key source of pollutant emissions. And minor sources it was found that minor sources in the municipality also include industrial and area sources. But for the purposes of this presentation, we will focus on transport and the key actions and actors that would contribute to improvements in air quality in the municipality. So the results here show that traffic nitrogen oxides emissions is dominated by heavy-duty trucks, which is followed by jeepneys and buses. We also found the traffic PM10 or particulate matter with 10 microns in diameter is dominated by light goods vehicles, followed by heavy-duty trucks and jeepneys, while sulfur dioxide emissions in the municipality is dominated by light goods vehicles, followed by heavy-duty trucks, and then buses and jeepneys. Next slide, please. So we spent the past year in completing the air quality diagnostic study for La Trinidad, and in parallel, we have engaged with stakeholders in the municipality to identify and prioritize the actions that would constitute the municipality's cleaner action plan. So we started by selecting a few or a list of priority actions that were chosen or that were selected by the project team based on best practice for policy and technology measures. We also selected priority measures to identify those that can be implemented in the short term, the medium term, and also in the long term. We used a stakeholder survey as an instrument to get the feedback and inputs from stakeholders in the municipality. And we had a stakeholder consultation in December 2021 to present these measures and programs and do a multi-criteria analysis to determine the top 3 actions that we wanted to showcase in the action plan. Now, the outcomes of the stakeholder workshop were then reviewed by the project team and selected to undergo further analysis of economic analysis, which was also described by Mark earlier, to determine the costs and the benefits of these actions. Now, next slide, please. So after this rigorous concentration with stakeholders in the municipality, we have identified 3 streams of action, which we determined to target transport, which is the key emission source in the Trinidad. So first is on public transport, and this is broadly categorized as public transport improvements, but we recognize that these would require different steps or different levels of interventions, such as, of course, touching on transport management, such as the approval and adoption of the local public transport route action plan, and also, of course, the national level PUV modernization program, which is also cascaded to all cities in the Philippines. And of course, that would be coupled by the introduction and awareness raising of possible alternative low to no emissions modes of transport, such as e-vehicles. We also look at the promotion of non-motorized transport, and of course, the promotion of pedestrianization, mainly revolving around revisiting policies and programs on bike lanes in the municipality, and also reviewing, of course, opportunities for building or strengthening infrastructure within within La Trinidad, and of course also revisiting feasibility studies that have already been conducted in the municipality for alternative modes of transport. We also wanted to look at strengthened enforcement and implementation of programs, standards, and also monitoring of emissions from vehicles in the municipality. Next slide, please.
2 minutes,
So
Dan.
of course, thank you, Mark. So of course, we determined that we also have to overcome barriers and challenges, and this include the general acceptance of the public, and also, of course, addressing limitations in financial capacity, specifically for the public transport improvements. And what we wanted to do is, of course, to push for solutions such as demonstration projects, facilitating knowledge sharing with other cities, and of course, also awareness raising seminars. And for other programs such as the promotion of non-motorized transport and pedestrianization, as well as the strengthening of enforcement, we deem that partnerships and linkages with partners that promote these activities and support these activities is also key. And then lastly, next slide, please. So these are just a list of the different stakeholders we have met in La Trinidad who have shown their support from day one of the action planning. And we believe that as we complete the action plan for the municipality, we will continue to engage with them and of course hear their thoughts and their feedback to how we can move towards the development of the plan and of course see through its implementation in La Trinidad. So that's it for me, Mark, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dang. Very, very clear and very timely. And it's been great to be sharing in the very high standard of sharing and engagement that we've really appreciated that from the La Trinidad team. So I'm now going to ask Tauhidul Islam, who is our coordinator for Faridpur. Tauhid, if you could join the call and present progress in Faridpur, please. So, yep, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dan, for your nice presentation. Good morning to our colleagues from Europe and good afternoon to our colleagues from Asian cities. I am Tauhidul Islam, the city coordinator for Faridpur city for this TA project funded by Asian Development Bank, PRC, and UCC RTF Fund. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. Next slide, please. Faridpur is one of the oldest oldest district of Bangladesh, located about 120 kilometers from Bangladesh, the capital city of Bangladesh. The area actually, when we started working on this to develop cleaner action plan for Faridpur, we are focusing on the Faridpur Peshawar master plan and national census. In those plans, the Peshawar area was just 17.34 square kilometer. But recently the Faridpur Peshawar area has been extended up to 66.52 kilometers, and as a result, the estimated population for Faridpur municipality has increased to 0.5 million. So the rapid growth of the city has a potential for future air pollution. And so the city authority has been expecting a rapid growth in near future, and they are looking for a feasible action plan which they can use to control air pollution effectively. Next slide. So for developing cleaner action plan, the TA team, we are closely working with the stakeholders in Faridpur, the local municipality, Faridpur municipality, the DC office, the Department of Environment, Civil Surgeon office, and other offices. And also we are working with the local NGOs to develop this cleaner action plan. So far, though the project activities have been seriously affected by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, global pandemic, however, With the kind support of our local stakeholders, we have been able to prepare a city profile, diagnostic report, impact and vulnerability report, and option appraisal report. The city profile provides the basic air quality background. The diagnostic report investigates the contribution of sources to emission and concentration in the city. The impact vulnerability report sets out the health and economic consequences of air pollution in Faridpur, and an options appraisal report describe the flagship action. Those actions are basically illustrative. Next slide, please. So the pollution sources have been identified through a series of stakeholder consultation, including inception workshop, personal interviews, surveys. Under the TA project, we have installed 3 air quality monitoring equipment in Faridpur city. One is situated in Compost Research Training Center. It's a facility of the Faridpur municipality, and this facility is located very close to the brick kilns in Faridpur city. Another one is installed in Faridpur Peshawar building or municipality building, which is a city center. And the third air quality monitoring equipment have been installed in the in a deaf and dumb school. It's a government school for the deaf and dumb children. And this school has been located very close to important road networks and close to bus terminals. The report we have prepared so far, the report prepared by our team prepared are basically based on the locally collected air pollution related data and secondary data provided by the Faridpur Municipality, Department of Environment, local NGOs, and finally in the last month, in April, we have organized a consultation workshop with the local stakeholder to prepare a list of activities. Next slide, please. So basically, these are the main emission sources in Faridpur. The sources are big kilns, domestic burning, shipping, traffic, waste, and power station. As you know, there is a 50 megawatt fuel power plant, peaking power plant, located very close to Faridpur city. Next slide, please. So far, our TA team has found that only nitrogen dioxide concentration exceed the national Bangladesh air quality standard and WHO guideline, but other pollutants do not cross the national standard. Next slide, please. So, like I said, in previous month, in 21st April, we organized a consultation workshop with the local stakeholder, where where DC office, municipality officials, DOE officials, and other stakeholders, including civil surgeon, NGO workers, participated, and they suggested a series of activities which can be undertaken to reduce the emission from the city, and this they suggested to undertake policies to promote cycling and walking, and improve fuel quality and promote the use of alternative fuels, promoting the use of low emission electric vehicles for transport sector. They also suggested to promote clean cooking technologies, for example, use of LPG, solid waste management, fugitive dust control, renewable for power generation, upgrading existing plant, and energy efficiency improvement. Next slide. So these 3 activities can be undertaken to reduce the air pollution from the city: solid waste management, promoting clean cooking technology, and promoting activities to control the fugitive dust. So to take these kind of activities, actually the capacity enhancement for the local stakeholder is needed, especially for the Peshawar and DOE. Also, resource mobilization is required, and strengthening the air quality monitoring. I think I should mention that there is one air quality monitoring station, camp station of Department of Environment is still in operation in Faridpur. Next slide, please. So, to implement a cleaner action plan, there are some challenges. First, I think I should mention that lack of proper air pollution related information. So the air pollution related information is needed to provide to the different stakeholders like government officials. Only the Department of Environment in Faridpur has the capacity and they have the information regarding air pollution.
2 minutes to it. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So and they, like I said, they have limited capacity in terms of technical, financial, and administrative. So enhancement of capacity can be a good solution. Coordination with all the stakeholders, including government, non-government offices, is also required. And it is very important to provide all the stakeholders with the relevant air pollution related information. Next slide, please. So basically in Faridpur, we have been working with these stakeholder, district administration, the Faridpur Paurasabha, Department of Environment, Bangladesh Road Transport Authority, Civil Surgeon, NGOs. So to implement this clean air action plan in Faridpur, we require at least these actors, not limited to these actors, but we need these actors. Next slide, please. I would like to thank our stakeholders in Faridpur, especially the Deputy Commissioner and District Magistrate of Faridpur, the Honorable Mayor of Faridpur, Mr. Amitabh Bose, Mr. Shamsul Alam from Executive Engineer, Rashid Sir from Department of Environment, and also our NGO partners in Faridpur for their kind support and cooperation, and also providing us with the relevant information. And I also would like to thank our team member, Dr. Salamat Khandapar and Rashid Sir, for their support. And thank you, our colleagues from Ricardo and Clean Air Asia. And thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Tuhid. The situation is really interesting in Faridpur with such a wide range of different sources that affect pollution in different ways and in different parts of the city, and really struggled with some difficult times during lockdown. So thank you for that. Okay, so for the final presentation in this group, I am going to ask Professor Lodoisamba Seratir, our city coordinator for Erdenet, to provide again a 10-minute update and presentation on progress in Erdenet. So Lodoisamba, if I could hand over to you, please. Thank you very much. So Lodoisamba, I see you're still on mute at the moment. There we are. We can see you now. That's good. Still on mute, so we can't hear you. There we go. Thank you.
Now?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Sri Lodoisamba, retired professor and coordinator of Erdenet City project. Next slide, please. My presentation is short. The Erdenet is the mining city hosting one of the biggest copper molybdenum enrichment factory. And you see in the picture that big mining and population is about 100,000. And main problem is Mongolia. It's very cold in winter. It's reaching -40 degrees, 2001. And because of that, much coal is burned to heat households. So Erdenet has 17,000 households who use coal for heating. Okay, next slide. please. Key vision of Erdenet City Clean Air Action Plan we were discussing in the two stakeholders meeting, and we decided that our key vision is reduction of air pollution to standard level, first the Mongolian standard level. Now Erdenet City air pollution is exceeding, especially PM and NOx is exceeding national and international standards. So we want to reduce it to a standard level. You see in the picture, the right picture is winter, Erdenet City. It's you can see the snow and cold and air pollution you also can see. And the vision is the left picture. Okay, next slide, please. The main key pollution sources, as I mentioned, the household stoves, as it's called, it contributes 82% of PM. And next one is transport, but transport is not much, only in central streets. NOx is exceeding. And the other main source, of course, industrial sources, power plants, and heat-only boilers. I also want to explain a little bit these pictures. On the right side, this is Mongolian beer tent. This is not very good insulated, so in winter to heat, they spend much coal, and it makes air pollution. And the middle picture is the stoves. Mongolian stove you see in the center of this gear, and it is used for heating and cooking. Okay, left one is the industrial power plant, as it also contributes air pollution. Thank you. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the key pollution source is the stoves. The Ricardo was suggesting to change this traditional stoves which use coal, change to electric stoves. That is, if we have changed 50% of stoves, then the PM concentration will be decreased to 23%. And NO will be 15 and SO to 45%, but SO is not a big problem. And you also see this 20% stove converted to electric stove. You could see how the improvement will be. Okay, next slide, please. We also were discussing in this stakeholder meeting what could be the challenges if we take measure to convert to electric stoves. If we don't use the traditional stoves, then maybe electricity cost for lower income people. Now the government subsidizing the night tariff. It's ongoing project, but later on, maybe government subsidy is needed to pay electricity cost for lower income families. And also the participants will discuss the initial cost of electric stoves. Maybe for some families, the government subsidies will be needed. Next slide, please. This is the table where the cost benefit analysis is doing. So first, as the main pollution source is the stoves, the scenario, the first row is if you change electric stoves, then will be, how is this calculation? And this will be the benefit analysis, will be 3.2 compared with the expenses. And you also can see other scenarios. For instance, 20% change of electric stoves, and also suggested that heat on the boilers introduce the gas as fuel, and also reduce the vehicle pollution. Some Euro 6 standard will be introduced, the 50% and 20%. And you can see how will be the economic cost benefit analysis. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, that's finished. Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Lodo Samba. That was very efficient. Yeah, a very unique city in Erdenet, and alongside the work that we're doing that you've described, looking in particular at the stoves, we're also doing some related studies measuring some dust levels in the city as well to investigate the importance of that. So if you do have any questions, as Lodo Samba asked, please do put them in the chat. There were a couple of thank you, a couple of interesting questions that I just wanted to pick up arising from the presentations today. So there was a question just asking why we'd focused on the 5 cities apart from Pakistan, and not why I wasn't presenting information on progress in Pakistan, in Peshawar and Sialkot. And the reason for that is that we have had some good progress in Peshawar and Sialkot in installing the monitoring instruments. So they're operating in those 2 cities and giving us useful data. So that's been very positive. But unfortunately, we haven't had the same, we've been able to make the same progress in the other parts of the program. So developing an emission inventory to enable us to do the source apportionment and economic analysis work, or in coordinating teams to develop, to look at air quality improvement options leading to the development of a clean air action plan. So that's really why we focused on the other 5 cities on this part of the discussion. But I think Dr. Ershad will be bringing you up to speed on the progress that we have been able to make and our plans for Peshawar and Sialkot shortly. There was also a question from Joy Amor-Bailey about the use we've been able to make of data from the monitoring instruments. I think it's important to understand that an emission inventory refers to the pollutants that are released from sources. So there we're calculating the amount of pollutants that's emitted over a period of time, typically a year, whereas the monitoring instruments are giving us a kind of measurement of the levels of pollution, the concentrations of air pollutions that are in the air. So that's kind of the result of those emissions combined with other sources that may be outside the city. So we can't use the the air quality monitoring equipment directly to give us information on emissions. But what we can do is we calculate emissions using other data sources. We put that into a model which tells us how those pollution levels disperse around in the local atmosphere, in the local area, in the airshed, sometimes say. And that gives us concentration levels in the atmosphere. And we can then compare our calculated levels to those that we measure, and that enables us to adjust our calculations and pick up any problems with that, and gives us more confidence in the model results that we can then use to support the development of robust and soundly based clean air action plans. So yeah, that's it for me. So I'm now going to hand over to Ben, who's going to just talk through some of the responses, I think, to what we've heard so far. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the useful clarification there as well, I think. And a big thank you, obviously, to our 3 city coordinators that we've heard from just now. So before we have a short break, I'd actually like to just invite some reactions to those presentations about where the clean air action plans are heading for the cities, and also sort of how that fits with wider plans and programs. So I'd like to start first with La Trinidad, and I would like to invite Cordelia Laksamana, former head of the City Environment and Parks Management Office at the City of Baguio, the Bengue Province. And a big thank you also for stepping in with quite such short notice as other colleagues couldn't join. So Cordelia, if you're online and able to join us, then welcome your thoughts.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can just hear you, but the
Hello, can you hear me?
the quality is a bit poor, unfortunately. Let's try. Let's just see if Cordelia can rejoin.
Hello, hello.
Perfect, we can see you now.
Can you hear me?
Not very well, unfortunately. It's very faint. And now you're on mute.
What?
No, the volume is very faint from my side. I'm not sure if it's the microphone is not working. So just what we will do is, if we maybe move on to one of our other reactors, and then we can see if we can just resolve the technical problem. So Dang, if you're able just to follow up on that front, and I will move to another. So Cordelia, we will come back to you. We'll come back to you shortly. So for Erdenet, I'd like to invite Bolgan Sevjav, our Senior Air Quality Specialist Consultant with the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at ADB, to provide some of her reactions around where things are heading on the Clean Air Action Plan for Erdenet. So Bolgan, are you available and able to join?
She's there, actually. I can see her in the participants list.
But not. Let us just follow up directly then. Otherwise we may need to break early and then come back to resolve some of these issues. Bolgan, last call.
Oh, Sambetsano.
Perfect, you're there. Bolgan, are you able to connect?
I'm sorry, my network is a little bit bad. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you perfectly now. Thank you. Over to you. Maybe I spoke too soon.
She's on mute, I think. Maybe that's why we can't hear her. Bolgan, you're on mute.
Maybe I talk after a few minutes. Sorry.
Okay, so what I would suggest is that we pause for a short break now. So let's take a 5-minute comfort break now, refresh, fill up your coffees and teas, and we will return at 10 past the hour, and we'll see if we can resolve some of those technical issues But either way, we will then be moving on with the second part of the session, where we'll be hearing from our city coordinators in Vietnam and in Pakistan. So please join us back again in 5 minutes. Thank you.
While we're on break, Ma'am Colleen, maybe if we can test your audio.
You can hear me now?
Yes, it's better. It's louder.
Okay. Sige.
Thank you po. So, after the break po. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bulgan, let me know if you want to check as well during the break.
Yes, please. I was
There it's
in another call. Can you hear me now?
yes, it's better.
So
After the break, we'll call on you again.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nabisin kan, Papa? Ito naman pas dito yan.
So welcome back, everybody. I hope you've refreshed, and apologies for the slight technical issues we had just before the break. So we will try round two, and let's start with Cordelia, if possible, to provide your reflections on the work that's been ongoing for La Trinidad. Cordelia, are you okay to join?
Yes, can you hear me?
Crystal clear, perfect. Over to you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure and my honor to be part of this ongoing learning exchanges. Well, I've been with Trinidad for a few months now, and we've been going through the very rigorous process that has been introduced through the project. But despite the very rigorous process that has been introduced, I think that the Trinidad municipality will stand to benefit from it. The diagnostic analysis that was presented by Dang provides a very scientific basis for the actions that have been discerned by the municipality of La Trinidad. I truly appreciate how it has been translated into this very expertly prepared and yet very easily understood action plan that the Trinidad has ventured into. Well, I look at the active stakeholder engagement that has been created over the process have contributed very much to the success of preparing the Clean Air Action Plan. Well, you see, it is now I realize that through the project, things seem to have been simplified. We already have the policy framework that has been there for quite a while, but it is only through this project that the interrelationships of La Trinidad to higher levels of government that can easily be achieved if we understand where we would come into and how we can contribute in terms of the local actions that we have been doing. So prioritizing the transport sector for La Trinidad is I think is a very good choice, considering that from the diagnostics that that was done, the transport sector contributes very much to air pollution in the municipality. Now, from the engagements and the exchanges that we've had, it turns out that there have been so many actions already ongoing from the national and down to the local level. It is just trying to put them all together into one action plan that benefits the municipality. And I think this is one of the great benefits that the municipality of La Trinidad can get from this undertaking. In fact, I would like to think that we have actually assisted, the project has actually assisted them in terms of trying to rationalize the institutionalization of the MENRO, which at this point is still a designated office with no permanent without a permanent organizational structure. With the action plan, I think it is going to provide them reason that there should really be that this office should already be created so that they can carry forward the action plan that has been created, the action plan that has been evolved for them through the project. A very good takeoff point, really, for actions that should be implemented by the municipality of La Trinidad. So I think that's my reaction for the output for La Trinidad.
Thank you, Cordelia, and thank you for persevering with the technical challenges. So the next up, if Bolgan, if you are able to connect, we checked during the break, it sounded like we were able to get you back. So could I pass over to you, please?
Sure, thank you. So sorry for the technical problem. So I would like to emphasize just a couple of things for the information of our colleagues who are participating in this stakeholders workshop, focusing on Erdenet City, Mongolia. So couple of weeks ago, we've been in this city for organizing our stakeholders workshop, and we had organized a couple of visits, and it was very nice to, it is very nice to share with you colleagues that as our coordinator, Mr. Loda Samba, was informing, this cleaner action plan will be hopefully addressing the key air pollution problems. And one of the problems, as he mentioned, is usage of raw coal in heating in winter in Erdenet city. And we had worked with our colleagues in operations division for basically to find investment solutions on clean heating solutions. So it was really good to have our international expert to visit and had preliminary studies. So that's the one good news, because this clean air action plan is supposed to also, you know, one of the challenges for all developing member countries is the challenge is the financing. So hopefully with this investment and this technical project that will invest 5 million initially will be able to have a demonstrable project on the ground. So that's one good news to share with you. And secondly, we expect that this clean air action plan, our colleagues from Ricardo and the project team will be helping with the potential economic costs to implement this clean air action plan. So it will be very important for our local authority to know the estimated costs for implementing this clean air action. So that's that are these two points I would like to emphasize, and wish all the best to the project team. And thank you for the local stakeholders who are participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Volkan. That's very useful. And I think, yeah, the financing point that you make is absolutely critical across all of the cities and clean air action plans that we're discussing here today, because it's one thing to develop a plan. You know, we can develop lots of plans, but if we cannot find a way to implement and to finance the actions and work that out in advance, then it's very difficult to see success. So I think that's why it's such a core part of what we're trying to do here. So unfortunately, we don't have our reactor for Faridpur is unable to join. So I think on that note, we will then move on to the next set of cities. And so Mark, if I hand back to you just to set us up for those, please.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the reactors for that very useful and well-informed feedback. So I'm now going to talk about the cities in Vietnam and then Pakistan. So as we have two cities in each of those countries, we're giving 15 minutes for the team, the project coordinators, to give us an update on those two cities. So could I invite Professor Hoang Duong Tung, Chairman of the Vietnam Clean Air Partnership and our city coordinator for the cities in Vietnam, to provide an update on progress with those two cities. So Professor Tung, it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Tung, city coordinator in Vietnam. As you know, that in Vietnam we have two cities participating in the project. It's Ho Chi Minh City and Vinh Yen. So I'm going to talk about the two cities. And of course, the two cities is very different from the size, from the population. So it's different picture, and therefore that different challenges and different opportunity. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so this first slide is Ho Chi Minh City and Vinh Yen. You see the Ho Chi Minh City in the left side and Vinh Yen City in the right side. So what is this? What's the vision in adapting? So is yeah, you know that in the middle, in the yellow color is something that's common for the city. I put it here is the law of environmental protection. 2020 already set a requirement on CAP development for each city province. Is now is mandate, not just E1 or not, but this is the law already asked for each city, each province to develop the CAP. Yeah. Second one is recent years, the high awareness on public on air pollution and risk on the health. They raise this in the resolution, in the regulation, and in the public media every day. You know, Chi Minh City is now air pollution is serious now, and AQI in many days are very high, and of course, it's a city also have a very high commitment to solve this problem. In Vinh Yen is smaller, but also many days are very high. AQI, air quality index is very high, and also cities have very high commitment to solve that problem. Next slide, please. So what is the key emission sources in the city? So here you see that Ho Chi Minh City is a very, very big city. I would say that it's mega city with population of 9 million people. An area is around 2,000 square kilometers. Yeah, very big city. And you see in the picture is a main problem in the city is transportation, and one of them is the motorcycle. The last number of motorcycles is very large. Is around 7 million motorcycle, and it's just around 1 million of truck and car, and this is number increase every year. For car and for the truck, there is an inspection program every year, but now for the motorcycle, we don't have yet inspection program. So the motorcycle you can use many years you want, and how is polluted is up to you. So no control yet. And public transportation is very limited. Buses and sky just under development. Another picture in Vinh Yen. Vinh Yen is a very small city, just newly developed. Area population only just around 120,000, just a million. Yeah, very small. An area is around 50 square kilometers. But here is we also have problem with two main sources. As Mark already said that we are here in Ho Chi Minh City and in Vinh Yen, we are try to identify the sources. We already installed the 3 monitoring station, and we got some data. So here is the problem is I think that there are 2 problems is from transportation, not from motorcycle, but here is from truck, because it's the city is home for to traffic hub, because we have the national road number 2 is across the city. And second one is industry. There is industrial park in the city of 262 hectares, so a lot of industry there. So we think that we are trying to identify, but the 2 sources that we can talk right now. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, how what is the CA process that enable the identification? So for Ho Chi Minh City, yeah, we identify main emission sources. We identify by talking, by working with stakeholders, and to prepare. And of course, in the city already have some project already they did, and they have some primary the information and data on emission sources, some statistics already just calculated there. And then we, through the workshop, we already just identify the sources and for sources, and we are coming to conclusion that motorcycle is the main sources of the pollution in the city. So we also just discussed with a lot of experts in Ho Chi Minh City, and we just approved the workshop. We have some just comment and recommendation, and we collect the data, emission just data from industry and from various sources, and we have ambient quality from the one station of ambassador, U.S. embassy in Ho Chi Minh City. In Vinh Yen cities, because we already installed 3 local sensors to monitor just ambient air there, and we also try to identify main sources. Here is one of sources we can think about is open burning and agriculture, because it's this is small city, so this is affected by just surrounding area. From agriculture and from open burning. Open burning meaning just they burn the solid waste, and just source after the harvest. Of course, we will also work with stakeholders, with the various departments and experts in Vinh Yen and in Hanoi, because Vinh Yen is not far from Hanoi. So many some research also conducted by some university and research institute. Next, please. So I think it's, regarding the activities that would be easier to implement, thus for Ho Chi Minh City and for Vinh Yen, I think that first we need to have air monitoring venue, and we need to raise the public awareness on air quality and health impact. You know that Ho Chi Minh City, and they have had a station for air monitoring, but it's due to some difficulty in maintenance, so it's no more station there. In Vinh Yen also there was one station, but also due to some procedure, so it's now this station already stopped. So in fact, we already installed there in Vinh Yen 3 stations, and but I think that the government should invest in air monitoring station in both cities. And then the activities, I think that in Ho Chi Minh City, we need to have more stringent emission standard for just motorcycle. We need E10 for fuel and motorcycle inspection. And of course, as I said, we need to develop an air monitoring network, because this is a big city and no reason to just to have just air monitoring network. And of course, for motor, in order to just to solve a problem for motorcycle and from mobile sources, we need to develop a roadmap for green transportation. Is electric public bus. You know that now already some buses, electric buses already is going in Ho Chi Minh City and in Hanoi. We need electric motorcycle, and I think that we need also such a low emission zone to develop. I think that the activities that easier can do now. For Vinh Yen city is the newly developed city, so we also start to develop. I think that we should start to develop with electric public bus, yeah, and public electric bus and electric motorcycle, and we need to have more children that control on industry, especially for boiler, industry and boiler, because we don't have much of that time, and a lot of industry in industrial park in Vinh Yen. And of course, we need to control the open burning, especially if burning solid waste. We need to do. Next slide, please. What are the barriers or challenges? Yeah, a lot of challenges and barriers in Ho Chi Minh City and Vinh Yen. This is first for the monitoring station. Yeah, we already talked about installation of monitoring station in the Ho Chi Minh City for a long time, but it's not right now due to many reasons. There is not yet monitoring station, but I think that Ho Chi Minh should have. But some provinces they already installed, but due to not proper maintenance procedure, especially regarding financial issues. So many stations they work, they run for 2 years, and after 2-3 years, so no maintenance cost, no finance. So this is they cannot provide good data. So I think that the barrier is first is large number of motorcycles. You see that 7 million motorcycles, and this motorcycle is low cost, and you know that most convenient for Ho Chi Minh City, for Vietnamese, not only for Ho Chi Minh City. So I think that with the large number of motorcycles is one of the key challenges to implement. Second
2
one
minutes.
is not
2 minutes, Dr. Tong.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Second one is not really infrastructure for green transportation, like battery charge, electric charge, etc. And third one is not a strong concrete incentive for public transportation. Yeah, yeah. For Vinh Yen is how to solve with National Road number 2. Yeah, is problem. And not yet incentive for green transportation, and just what is new technologies for boiler, and it's not good solid waste management of the city is a problem. Next slide, please. So solution, I think that we put it there is some solution. In yellow is for both Ho Chi Minh City and Vinh Yen. Is awareness on air pollution and health impact. Is we need new technology on green transportation. Yeah, we need the policy for PPP, private, public-private partnership, infrastructure development and public transportation. And we need some kind of mechanism for green bond to just borrow the money. We need good maintenance procedure for monitoring station. In Ho Chi Minh City, so we think that public transportation development is number one, and maybe it's just a low emission zone. We need to develop it. In Vinh Yen, so the small and old industry, we just the barrier, and we need better solution waste management. What are the stakeholders? I also list a lot of stakeholders. There is already ministry because related regarding just some policy. So just we need just help from the related ministry, from city authority, from Department of Natural Resources, Environment, Department of Transportation, Department of Finance, etc. and from private sector and from public media, etc. So this is, of course, is from industrial part. Yeah, I think that there's a stakeholder that we need to involve. Yeah, I think that's my presentation already finished. Thank you very much.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Tung. Yeah, really interesting. And we're at a slightly earlier stage with those cities, so we are still working on the technical analysis. But yeah, really useful to see that, and we look forward to hearing the responses to that. I'm now going to ask Dr. Ershad Ahmed of HSEQ Consultants to give us a presentation and update on the slightly different situation that we have in Peshawar and Sialkot in Pakistan. So Dr. Ershad, can I hand over to you, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. It's my pleasure to present the situation of air quality and the problems we are facing in Peshawar and Sialkot. So the next slide, please. What are the biggest in roadmaps towards development of clean air action plan for Peshawar and Sialkot city? So the milestone 6, which is the establishment of clean air action plan working group. So a working group was developed, but due to the COVID-19 emergency and lockdown, it caused delay in the progress of the roadmap. So it is still progressing. So the diagnostic reports for Peshawar and Sialkot cities were developed. The emission inventories compilation, which will feed into the modeling, also delayed due to the COVID-19, making data access slow and sometimes it becomes difficult. So a completion of environment of the emission inventories for Peshawar and Sialkot cities are uncertain. Although we have collected the data, we have compiled the report and sent to the concerned departments. The profile for Peshawar and Sialkot cities have already been completed as issue number 1 on April 28, 2021 by Ricardo, and this was submitted to ADB. Next slide, please. What are the primary emission sources in Peshawar and Sialkot? This is a slide showing the emission sources for Peshawar city. So the point sources are mainly the brick kilns and the chipboard factories. The information is provided by KPKPA. And the area sources includes the residential activity, including the biomass, fuel burning, and solid waste, open burning, also about the generator use, diesel generators, emissions from that. Commercial activities including cooking using biomass, open waste burning, and fuel handling and sales. This information is collecting from the city level officials. And the mobile sources, these are the on-road vehicles, the rickshaw, motorcycle, bus, truck, pickup, car, minivans, and microbuses. And also the off-road vehicles, that is for the construction of equipment like tractors, etc. And this information was collected from road transport authorities and excise and taxation departments. Next slide, please. Priority emission sources for Sialkot city, this includes the point sources, which are from the heavy industry and manufacturing facilities, leather tanneries, and brick kilns. Area sources for Sialkot, these are the residential activities, including biomass fuel burning, solid waste open burning, a generator using the diesel, crop residues open burning, agriculture waste processing, this is limited to the extent, commercial activities, agriculture crops, and livestock and biomass data. So regarding the mobile sources for Sialkot, on-road vehicles, rickshaw, car, wagon, motorcycle, bus, truck, pickup, and car minivans like this, they are producing the emissions. Off-road vehicles like construction equipment, like tractors and other machinery, and inter-district motor vehicle transport. These are the priority emissions sources for the Sialkot city. Next slide, please. A roadmap process helps in identification of actions to improve the emissions. So air quality management plan. There is no action plan, no air quality management plan for Peshawar and Sialkot cities, and none of the following air quality management components exist. No EIS, emission inventories for air pollution sources, no health impact assessment, no sources apportionment, and air quality modeling. The roadmap will help in identification of the following actions to improve emissions by expanded problem statements like air quality index, identification of challenges and solutions, alignment and coordination of implementation, low emission vehicles, energy planning, capacity building, that is the educate and outreach program. This will increase the capacity and this will provide training to the KPK EPA staff and as well as to the EPD Punjab concerned staff to improve their capacity. So next slide, please. Activities like if we say the low hanging fruits, which can be easier to grab, that would be easiest to implement to address priority emission sources. Number one is the strengthening air quality monitoring. Air quality data monitoring on regular basis, its compilation and evaluation on yearly basis to develop a baseline. Although on pieces in different projects, different monitoring has already been done, but there is no compiled data for the Peshawar city as well as for Sialkot that can be provided, which can be provided as a baseline. The second is policy reforms and investment for improved air quality, source identification and implementation of national air quality standards to control emissions. Although national air quality standards are available as on the federal and the provincial levels, but the proper implementation is still lacking. The third, which is very important, is the capacity building, as I have already mentioned. That is the training to design and implement air quality management policies, including training of existing staff and recruiting the specialized staff. This is very important that the existing staff should be, their capacity should be enhanced to deal with the monitoring equipments, to compile the data and make a baseline for the emission inventories. Next slide, please. What are the key barriers and challenges to implementation? Continual delays in Pakistan causing significant issues to delivery of the roadmap for CAAP, Clean Air Action Plan. Number one, changes in focal points and senior figures, like in KPEPA, it caused delay in progress for Peshawar, although it is limited, but ADB resident manager mission has to intervene. Sialkot EPA needs follow-up by the EPA Punjab head office or for better communication. The second point, the second barrier is a new technical assistance team member has been contracted based in KP. Meetings held this month with ADB, resident mission and local team members plus ADB project lead and international team joining remotely. Enthusiastic cooperation from both KPAPA and Sialkot EPA is required. And the third and the important point is cooperation and coordination, which is still lacking in progress. To progress with the project, the communication is ongoing to remove the barriers, and we hope that with this communication and these type of meetings with the concerned authorities will remove the barriers, inshallah, and the progress will be the project will be progressing smoothly. Next slide, please. What are the potential solutions to the barriers and challenges, and who are the key actors? KPA and EPA Sialkot, they are the key actors for Peshawar and Sialkot, the lead organization for liaising with the technical working group, technical assistant consultants, and ADB for the development and implementation of the roadmap for CAAP. The TA technical assistant consultant will be responsible for the overall development of the roadmap for CAAP and the evidence base that will inform the selection of policies and technologies. Work in partnership with the technical TA consultants to enable access to relevant database, data sets and supporting information both by the EPA, KPEPA and technical working group and the Sialkot EPA together. Facilities that facilitate the identification and involvement of relevant stakeholders in the implementation of the technical TA and subsequent roadmap for CAAP. On the monitoring equipment, we have already installed two equipment in Peshawar. One is in the Chamber of Commerce and the other is on the Public Service Commission Department on the Mall Road. And similarly, we have installed three equipments in Sialkot. So the next step is that the KPEPA and the EPA Sialkot should own the equipment, and we will hand over this to them, and they should continuously monitor the parameters through these instruments. Following the completion of the TA, the equipment will be handed over to the EPAs for continued use. Here, I would like to mention that if EPA, KPEPA and EPA Sialkot, they nominate the focal points, so the postcode will be given to them, and they can directly have link with the instruments, and they can download the data for their use. But I think that before that, we need that their capacity should be built so that they should be well versed with the equipment, and they can easily download the data, emission data from their instruments. Then the overall coordination of the technical working group, which is very important. This includes the meetings of members to discuss the development of the roadmap for CAAP Clean Air Action Plan. This is all from my side. If there are any questions, I am available. Thank you very much for the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. If there is any question,
thank you,
I'm
Dr.
available.
Thank you, Dr. Ershad. Yes, please do put any questions or comments into the chat. And I think we've also had some very productive discussions with the KP Planning and Development Department, which we're hoping will also bear fruit as we work towards the roadmaps. So let me hand over back to Ben then, who is going to coordinate input from reactors for the cities that we haven't yet heard from. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to Dr. Tung and Dr. Ershad for your presentations. I think it's very useful to understand really the situation and what's been happening, some of the challenges, but also the opportunities as to how we take things forward. So hopefully we can have a more successful round of, from a technical perspective, with the reactors this time round. So first, for comment on the Vietnamese cities, I'd like to invite Pham Quang Phuc, Senior Environment Officer and the Environment Safeguard and Climate Change Focal Point at the Vietnamese Resident Mission. I'd like to invite your feedback really on what you've heard so far, and also I guess how it fits with some of the wider activities and programs that you're involved in. So over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Tung, for your very good presentation, very comprehensive presentation. Then I can see that, the TH have very good progress in Vietnam, in both city, Ho Chi Minh City and Vinh Yen City. So in here, I just like to emphasize some issue that Dr. Tung presented here. as you see, the two cities, right? Two cities, they have so much different between two cities. Ho Chi Minh City is mega city, very big city, and Vinh Yen City. We were talking about air pollution, but exactly the how can I say the pollution sources are very different, and pollution level also very different between two cities. Ho Chi Minh City, together with Hanoi, both cities in Vietnam, as identified at the alarm level of air pollution. Then the government also, aware of the shared air pollution in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi City. In the Mr. Tung presentation, I agree with him for the pollution sources that the TA have identified. But in here, I just only focus on transport sector. The transport sector share, biggest percentage of air pollution in the city, and I can say. Then some reasons for the why transport sector share the biggest air pollution. As motorcycle, right? I agree that the number of motorcycles in Vietnam is very high, especially in some city like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. The motorcycle is very convenient for the people moving around the city, something like that. And also not just only motorcycle, and also private car. Private car also increased significantly recently in recent year, because the economic in Vietnam growing very fast, and the people richer, and they buy quite a lot of private car. So the government are aware of the shared problem, and the city, even the city, Ho Chi Minh City, they are aware of problem, and the city also set up a master plan for the public transport. The most important now to reduce private vehicle is to increase public transport. That is very important. The city have master plan for that. For the metro development. ADB also have one project there in Ho Chi Minh City, but the cities have problem with their master plan. There is very low progress of the public transport development in the city, because of the investment budget for the metro project is need much investment. It's high investment, and also resettlement also problem, because there are some existing metro project there, but the government also have problem for resettlement of the people, in the city, how to remove the people to the other place for project demand. There are two big problem. Then in here, I think the solution that Tung mentioned, I agree that the TA can support for the how I can say, for the incentive policy for public transport development. What are the incentive policy for public investment? That is very important. And also the city also should have an incentive policy for using electricity vehicle. I think the solution are very important. No way to reduce air pollution in Ho Chi Minh City without do solution. So that's why I hope that the DA can further contribute to the city for the incentive policy of the public transport development. I think that is the thing that the DA contribute to Ho Chi Minh City. For Vinh Yen City, so much different. The Vinh Yen City is small city. We have a size of air pollution now, but not quite shared compared with other city. I agree with Tung here for some pollution sources, like road natural road number 2 going through the city, that may contribute transport air pollution problem. And but the city is quite close to Hanoi city. If the city authority have no plan, then more problem will come up with the city, because the city have a very high urbanization and the industrialization. Then I think Tung here also mentioned some sorry some solution for like the city should have a good planning, right? Would have a
Sorry, we seem to have lost Fook there in terms of being
hello,
muted. Yes, you're back. Sorry, I'm not
okay.
sure what
Thank
there.
you, thank you.
We're just for the
No,
last 10 seconds
not from
or
my
so.
side. I found I hear some noises, but not from my side, I think.
No, you're back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in Vinh Yen, ADB also have a project there, investment project to spot the city for green city, green secondary city development. Within the project activity, we spot the city have master planning for urbanization. Then I think that would be very good point for air quality control. I think yeah, I think in such case the TA can contribute for the city air pollution planning, air pollution control through good city planning and also urbanized industrialization planning. I think that would be very good for the air pollution control in Vinh Yen City. So that one from my side, Ben.
Thank you very much for that. That's really useful reflections, I think, on some of the differences between the cities and the challenges, but also, I guess, similarities in places. So no, I think that's very helpful. So thank you. So now to move back onto the cities in Pakistan, and I guess just to reiterate what I presented earlier as in terms of the slight shift in the work plan for these cities to move towards a roadmap for a clean air action plan, just recognizing the quite significant delays we've had with the pandemic and the timescales of the TA. So just as a sort of reminder on the shift in focus. So first, for Peshawar, I'd like to invite Kiyoshi Nakamitsu to join us. So Kiyoshi is the Principal Urban Development Specialist working in the Central and West Asia Department for ADB. So Kiyoshi, if you are online and able to join us, that would be perfect.
Yes, thank you, Ben. I don't know if you can see me. Can you see me right?
Perfect. Loud and clear as well. So perfect.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to start by saying thanks, Karma and TA team for inviting me for this very useful session. I'm very happy to see many useful sessions being shared with the group here. My name is Kiyoshi Nakamitsu. I have been the team leaders for a few ADB funded urban project in Pakistan. One is the Punjab Intermediate City project, which is the $200 million project supporting for two cities of Punjab, that's the Sialkot and Sahiwal. And then also we have recently approved the new project in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, that's northwestern part of Pakistan. And we have KP City Improvement Project, that's the $650 million project approved in December 2021. And I'm here with my colleague, Mr. Ashif, and he has been our knowledge focal in Pakistan Resident Mission. And I guess he's going to cover something about Sialkot. So that's just the reason why I'm here. I'm actually very happy to see the presentation of Dr. Ahmed, because he seems to have a lot of achievement in those two cities. But then I'm going to leave it to the team to discuss some technical issues. but rather I wanted to share some context from the field, because it's very important to have some connection between the data and the analysis, and then the actual situation and the relevance to the people on the ground. So that's why I'm here. Yeah, so I guess what I'm just trying to share is that Pakistan, I think if you understand the geographies, the Pakistan is surrounded by big countries. Obviously that China, India, Afghanistan, and Iran are also sharing our borders. So I guess it is important to have some regional approach. Pakistan alone cannot solve the air pollution issues. So especially both Peshawar and Sialkot, and we share the border with Afghanistan and India. So this kind of forum is important because we see a lot of colleagues from different countries and regions. So I hope we can have the same approach in future. I noted that Dr. Hamed was talking about the policy reform and action plan. I think all of those are important. And then we fully support the statement from the Dr. Hamed. But I think it's important that the government own those state policy actions and the reform. ADB cannot enforce them to adapt those action plan. So if they don't own it, we need to find out a way to make them own it, because otherwise they're not going to implement. So I think ADB has some role to play. When we have financing opportunity, this is the time that we can also present maybe the action plan for them to implement and own it. And then I guess that sort of approach is being taken to KP City Improvement Project in the area of solid waste management operations and wastewater treatment plant operations. So I guess that's maybe the issues that I wanted to discuss. I guess the TA finding itself needs to have some context to the people. So you need to communicate with people on the ground, and then making sure that we are going to use this data when the development agency like ADB is going to prepare a new project. So I think I leave it to Asif to comment on the Sialkot. Over to you, Asif. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiyoshi. And I think you briefly explained very well about our investments in KP and Punjab. And for sure, and before I move to the Sialkot, I would like to add a few things to the Peshawar. The reason why I just want to chip in on Peshawar, because we had a very fruitful meeting with the Secretary Environment yesterday. Although Mark was unable to basically, be present due to some his engagement, but his national team was there. So I think we saw still a very good and positive signs within the KP bureaucracy that they are very keen to do work on the air quality. And that is a very positive sign that the high management is still having a very good interest and want to see some good actions on the air quality. And he mentioned this, that he would love to see this city air action plan, but this is the failure of the relevant agency who didn't provide the inputs very timely. And still he is trying to futuristically see this roadmap at a high level. So at least this could be, move toward the city level action plan. And he requested the ADB to, providing the support on some kind of saving we have under the TA to move on the city level air action plan. Maybe in our next future, some kind of PRF project, we can do some work on that. And the unit had also, committed some kind of this thing that we will we will support the KP government on this high level agenda, which they have, because Peshawar is one of the city which is highly prone to this air quality. And there is still a high appetite. Just want to ensure this. Sorry? There is a noise, sorry.
Please continue.
Okay, so Yeah, so we had a very, this was, I mentioned, and on the Sialkot, just let me, share that on the Sialkot, we had a very good emphasis in a sense that we are going ahead with the Smart City Command and Control Center in Sialkot. So in this Sialkot and Sahiwal, we will have a command and control center, and we had built in the TORs of the consultant that a smart city action plan dashboard will be embedded to that command and control center. So they will be, able after this project to handle all the instruments and the data acquisition process. And that command and control center will be basically the one who will be disseminating information in the public. So this is some kind of sustainable options we are opting for this, and this will be improved in the future. For example, adding few more instruments in the city area, so at least the people and the awareness should be there about the air quality. And there are certain industries, so we propose that the government should also introduce some kind of mechanisms for the industries air quality monitoring, and all the industries on their own cost shall install some kind of similar nature instrument within their industries, and that will be linked to the command and control centers of the smart city, and the informations will be disseminated across, with the public for any kind of any further decisions on this subject. So this is one. I think Kiyoshi has very briefly explained our investment, and just want to add a little bit on the TA. The TA is, very been appreciated by the government from KP, also from Punjab. And we hope a very good result of the roadmap and this air quality instrumentation and the data acquisition process. And in the future, if this is possible, we will also request to consider again Peshawar for the city level action plan, because the secretary requested yesterday in a very high words that we need still this support. And apart from that, we really appreciate the TA support on this framework preparation for the national level on the air quality framework, which is very been appreciated by the previous government, also the current government. So currently, even I am in a hotel who are basically doing a workshop on the hazardous waste management. So I just also mentioned this framework might also have some kind of relation with that. So this kind of work, the soft work, but it can build the capacities of the government, and it can build the capacities of the relevant agencies to move on for some kind of concrete financing in these sectors and these thematic areas. So I will just finish with the thank you to the team, and appreciate all this kind of work who are handling and supporting this TA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asif, and also thank you, Kiyoshi. That's very useful. And as you say, there's lots of wider activities going on in those provinces and cities, which all really play into this. And so I think whilst we've had to adapt the work plan for the TA and we're moving to this sort of roadmap approach, I think still longer term, as you say, there is that ambition to have cleaner action plans in place. It's just they will be in the future. So I think that's where, we need to see how far we can take that roadmap to really set things up. So I'm just conscious of time. So there's a few questions just to pick up, which I'll do briefly, and then if any others come up, but then we'll move on. So I think there's a specific question about Pakistan, which I think is very relevant in that there are a few other cities which already have cleaner action plans. And the question is, how do we see the lessons from such cities being taken into account for effective implementation of cleaner action plans in Peshawar and Sialkot? So very much we have been talking to a wide range of stakeholders to understand what has worked in other cities, both in Pakistan, but also elsewhere. And this also very much plays into what I was saying earlier about the link to the national level Pakistan Cleaner Plan, because that also has then a sort of a mandate to take certain actions in priority cities, of which Peshawar is one. So again, there's a sort of linkage with different cities, both from the sort of the national level down, but also a desire to take action at the city level. So I think those lessons, we have been talking with some stakeholders, and that would also be taken into account as we move on to roadmap. The other question, which is from Joy from UCCRTF, is a very good question. I will try to answer some of it quickly, but some is obviously a bit more detailed. So the question is that the action planning exercise has enabled each city to have evidence-based decision-making for prioritizing investments that will improve air quality. So the first question was, how would they be formally absorbed into cities' plans and policies? And is there a strong ownership of the Clean Air Action Plan by them? So if you recall in the first presentation I gave at the start of this session, one of the key objectives of the work is also the mainstreaming of the Clean Air Action Plans into wider policy, wider plans. And that very much is what we've been trying to do and continue to do as part of the exercises. So we've been holding a series of workshops and meetings. Mark presented actually some of those, an overview of those different meetings. There's around 6 in total for each city, but really actually working with a Clean Air Action Plan working group to understand what existing plans and policies there are, what changes are upcoming, and how do we mainstream this so that we're ensuring that the actions being taken as part of the action plans are actually beneficial for other areas, but also build on work that's ongoing there. So I think in terms of it being absorbed and being taking ownership, I think that's working quite well. I think it's variable between the cities, but that very much reflects the different stages at which we're at as well, I think. So if you recall the first 3 cities of the Trinidad, Faridpur and Erdenet, we're much more advanced in terms of the analysis and the engagement with stakeholders. Whereas for Ho Chi Minh and Vinh Yen, we're just completing some of the analytical work and we've just started some of the exercises. And then for Peshawar and Sialkot, as we said, we've had a slight change. So the sort of the formal Clean Air Action Plan will be at a later point in the future outside of this TA. So the roadmap will try and look at how do we build that engagement and the ownership. For point 2, Joy's asked about the granularity of information provided on the list of actions varies across the cities. And will the TA support them in refining these before it wraps up? Maybe Mark, I could call you in just to sort of pick up on how we're approaching that.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Yes, and yeah, really good question. And there is a lot of, as you say, varying levels of detail. I think we are working closely with partners in the cities, and I'm sure they'll recognise this, that they've come up with some suggestions and ideas that they've worked through for measures to go into the Clean Air Action Plans, which is then evaluated through the multi-criteria analysis approach. Some of those who've been able to do the more detailed analysis. So I think we will end up with Clean Air Action Plans that do have quite detailed and specific measures that are relevant to each city. And then in terms of the level of detail that we provide, level of support, I mean, that is kind of laid down in the terms of reference that we're working to. But there will be a lot of supporting material. So we've already produced policy and technology options report that describes the different options that are available. The investment strategies will support the implementation of measures going forward, and that may involve terms of reference. I'm not sure we get down to that level of detail of producing terms of reference for future work, but I think that will provide a really strong basis for the cities to go forward. And I think that kind of leads into the question 3 that Joy asked. So maybe if I hand back to you, Ben, for that, or I think maybe Carmen's already put an answer up as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I think just on that second question there, it's very much about developing Clean Air Action Plans that can be implemented. So we're trying to make sure that it's not just develop a plan, hand it over. The whole process of developing it is intended to ensure that it can be implemented successfully. And so that includes investment plans, engagement strategies as well with the public, with industry and other stakeholders. So I think it's really trying to ensure that it's considering a sort of a holistic approach to how we take that forward. And then the last question was around, with the studies and Clean Air Action Plans nearing completion, what will be the TA's success or outcome level indicators? And Karma's picked some of that up in the chat. So in terms of sort of the, I guess, the headline indicators for success is around investment projects that result from it. And of course, you know, sort of the wider indicators around having those Clean Air Action Plans developed on their way to adoption and implementation, and then obviously looking at specific projects within it. But as Karma said in the chat, then it's very much around we can move towards investment projects specifically. And there may be further activities to follow from these Clean Air Action Plans that may get picked up, for example, in the future Asia Clean Blue Skies program, which is also under development, looking at how ADB can increase and enhance their investment in air quality projects in the future. So it's, whilst this TA will complete, there's also potential for further support in this area. So just very conscious of time, and I don't see any other questions, I think. So I'm just checking the chat. I think then we would move on to session 3, and we just have now 2 very much shorter sessions just to round off the discussion. Firstly, just a big thank you for all of our city coordinators for their presentations and of course their ongoing hard work. To Mark, obviously, for framing things, and then to our reactors that we've had for each city. I think that's been really useful to get your take on things. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Glinda, our deputy team leader for the TA and from Clean Air Asia, who's really just going to talk a bit more and facilitate a discussion around opportunities for strengthening and mainstreaming clean air actions. So Glinda, over to you, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Ben. Very good afternoon and good morning to everyone here. For this session, we really want to make this an open discussion. You've heard several of our city coordinators and reactors in the previous session. So this is the time for us to hear from you about opportunities in your city or your country for strengthening and mainstreaming clean air actions in different sectoral plans, such as transport plans, energy plans, environment, urban development plans, and other plans that your city may be developing or your country may be developing, and or in economic development planning. So we have actually invited we have invited a reactor to start off the discussions. And I'd like to call on Engineer Jundi Del Socorro, who is the Chief of the Air Quality Management Section of the Environmental Management Bureau of the Philippine Ministry or Department of Environment and Natural Resources, to give us his thoughts on opportunities to integrate clean air actions in different sectoral plans in the Philippines. I'd like to check if Engineer Jundi is ready to give his intervention.
Yeah.
Engineer Jundi.
Good afternoon, Attorney Glinda. I'm here. Yeah, and unfortunately, I may be having some problems with connection, so I won't be sharing my video. Hello.
No problem. You're very clear to us, and yes, we can hear you. And please go ahead, Engineer Judy. We're very interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us, and good morning, good afternoon, maybe good evening in some places here for our attendees. I've heard some great plans and presentations, and I congratulate everybody for the presentations. I'd just like to share our experiences in drafting the action plan for the Philippines. The first action plan was way back 2000, and 20 years later, there are so many things that happened, and there's a lot of challenges, and right now we're updating the action plan. Before the pandemic, we had several consultations in the action plan. However, during the start of the pandemic, I can remember March 2020. Okay, everybody, I think that's the first time that the pandemic hit us. You know what we've observed in just 2 months, or even in the first month of March 2020, all of those action plans that we've been talking about for 2 decades since the Cleaner Act was sent to us by God. No? God gave us a snippet on how to implement the action plan in 1 month. Okay, just by giving us or letting us experience a worldwide pandemic. Because in just 1 month, the reason why I've said that all of the action plans was implemented, because in just 1 month, we've seen great improvement, no, from the air pollution coming from stationary sources, coming from the transport sources, which is our major problem, and all of the area sources our problems here in the Philippines, and probably all the transboundary air pollutants that we are experiencing. In just 1 month, no, God gave us a snippet, no, on how to implement these action plans, and we've seen the blue skies, no, and we have this national and sectoral action plans that we're talking about. But before that national and sectoral, I'd just like to highlight this one. These are the entry levels, no, and the sustainable action plans, because what we observed, no, during the pandemic, there are a lot of entry-level action plans that are very effective, no, that really helped us experience what it's like to have a clean air. So these are the following, like because totally it's around 80% of the transportation was halted. So we've seen a lot of people riding the bikes, the motorcycles, okay? I mean the bicycles, the non-motorized means of transport. And there's a lot of improvement in terms of air quality. There's no pollution, there's no greenhouse gas. Even for a developing country like us, that we don't have the similar structure, just like in Europe, they have elevated bikeways, no, so that everyone can go to the business district, to the suburban areas just by bicycle. Okay, it can be done pala, no. Unfortunately, we will need a lot of structure. So these are entry levels, no. But for developed countries, this is some challenge in terms of sustainability. We've seen a lot of e-vehicles and hybrid vehicles, but there are also two-wheel e-vehicles. I've seen a lot of people, even my friends. Now, if you're a commuter, you can see the two-wheel vehicle, both yung may gasoline fed and both electric, no. So people look for a lot of ways, no, in terms of transport during the pandemic, and these are non-motorized and some are motorized but gives lesser emissions. And for more than 10 years, we're struggling for our first pilot bus rapid transit, or the BRT, okay, in our major thoroughfares called the EDSA. And in just weeks, no, our department has, because of the pandemic, implemented the bus rapid transit. So our bus lane is now on the middle, and suddenly everyone has is practicing bus stops, you know, because before you know, a lot of areas we don't have the proper bus stops here. That those are problems. We don't have proper terminals. Those are problems in transport. But because of the pandemic, suddenly we have this first BRT in EDSA. And another entry levels that we observe here is working from home, well, because it decreases the demand for energy. And the more demand for energy, then the more air pollution that we will be encountering, like from the power sector, like from the transport sector. Both utilize petrol means, no. So probably I think this is an entry level, but why not, no? Why not make it sustainable? increasing the work from home scheme, like even us from the government. If the private sector are still producing the same output, why can't the other sectors? Okay. Then there's a lot of things like the curfew hours, that possible mall hours, no? And here also we've realized, no, the importance of urban planning, especially in emerging cities elsewhere in our country, because we've seen, no, we've seen the roads, no, without any vehicles, and even the open spaces, potential open spaces that are potential urban cities. So it's very important, no, that there should be a master plan in all emerging cities, so that we could address, no, all these usual problems, especially on the transport sector. Now, with regards to the action plans, what we've devised here is a national and sectoral. Okay, for the sectoral, we go as low as the local government units through airsheds to our designated airsheds, because our designated airsheds supervises the local government units. And in the local government units, if going back to the problems of air pollution based on our emission inventory, it's 80%, around 80%, and around 70 to 80% national, and around 70 to 80% in all 16 regions of their country. The main problem is the transport sector. And it's the local government units that we really identified that we should strengthen in terms of the land use planning, the transport planning, to address air pollution from the mobile sources. Because we've seen the old cities, no, like the airports are still in the middle of the cities, the lacking of mass railways, the lacking of roadways, everything that contributes to traffic are culprits of the air pollution problem here in our country. So that's why we're strengthening the action plan of each airshed, and we're fast tracking their activities toward designating attainment and non-attainment areas. One way to solve the problem is to recognize that there's a problem, and if there's a problem, we have to designate the non-attainment area, or those areas which are polluted. It doesn't really sound environmental. Most of the time it's political, but our political champions should be man enough to accept that such their areas of jurisdiction are non-attainment. And if there is non-attainment, then we could identify through emission inventory and other air quality tools which specific source of air pollution, if it's from the transport, which specific transport sector, if it's from the stationary sources, which specific industry type is the culprit for having this air pollution problem. And by accounting all this air pollution problem, we also want to strengthen the capacity of these airsheds for them to, through emission inventory and other tools and air quality monitoring, to establish and identify the carrying capacity of their area. You know, by understanding the carrying capacity of their area, they could easily identify a specific compliance plan to address why they have reached the carrying capacity of each of this area, and why these areas are classified as non-attainment area. So we will go back to the emission inventory, identify which specific source is the main problem, and we will target that specific problem through compliance plans. That's how we understand, and that's how we'll be implementing the action plans, both from the airsheds and the LGUs. And everything of this one are compiled through our national plan. The national plan being the lead agency in supervising air quality management here in the Philippines. One of the challenges that we're encountering right now is the supervision and monitoring of our co-national government agencies. Because if we will just only plan for our department, it's easy. But the Philippine Clean Air Act, is composed of a lot of, requires a lot of cooperation from different government agencies. We need a commitment and commitment from the energy sector, from the energy department. What is their roadmap? What is the energy plan? We need the commitment of the health sector. What is the roadmap in terms of health and environmental health related to air quality? We need the roadmap of the transport sector. What is the specific transport plan? We need the roadmap of the research sector. What is the research sector related to air quality? And we need the roadmap for greenhouse gas mitigation and climate change. Our present target right now is 75% in 10 years. Okay, and we need
you're referring to the NDC Engineer Jundi.
Yes.
We have a few seconds for your intervention. It has been really very interesting, and I think the main point that you make is that leadership in national action planning and integrating clean air actions into sectoral plans must be taken by the main agency, which is usually the Environment Department or the Environment Ministry, and this should be the agency that ensures that the other departments contribute to the air quality goals that have been set either by law or by a national action plan that has been agreed and accepted at the national level. And I also saw, Engineer Jundi, that you mentioned that the very important role of national government working with city governments so that they too contribute to the national air pollution goal. So I would like to thank Engineer Jundi for sharing this the work that the department is doing in the Philippines. And I encourage the other participants to share. However, I think we don't have any hands raised now. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating in session 3. And I'll hand over now to Ben to introduce to session 4, the next session for this workshop.
Thank you very much, Attorney Glinda. Thank you.
And thank you, Engineer Jundi. So without further ado, just to move on really to the final presentation as such, we then have a wrap up and next steps. But the final session is really to give you a bit of an overview, a bit of a flavor of the upcoming virtual policy workshop and technology fair that is taking place next week. And so I would like to introduce Wei Wan, the program manager, and Wei Hao Zhang, the air quality lead, both for Clean Air Asia in PLC, to take us through really the plans for the event so that you can get warmed up for next week. Over to you.
Thank you, Ben. So I'm expecting the slides to be shared on the screen.
Dana, are you okay to share Wei's slides, please?
I can also share by myself.
Yes, we go ahead.
Okay. Great. I hope you can see the slides clearly now. Yes. So great. I'm going to give the overview on the upcoming virtual events and the objective of such kind of arrangement of TA task, that why we proposed and what we want to achieve. Under the TA, we propose to have the policy transfer workshop, as well as the PRC city case study reports to improve the understanding of China's experience on the AQ program and projects that achieved the great air quality improvement here. And the virtual transfer workshop in the next week is just the step of doing so. And we will also develop the city air quality management case study reports based on the presentations that we will see from the workshop. And we also, because we are having several cities, so we also welcome you to provide the feedbacks on which city you think will be most relevant and useful for you. And then we will also decide with the TA team altogether to develop the case study after the event. We also hope to upload the learning materials and the air quality management case study reports on the IBAQ learning portal for wider dissemination for more Asian cities to learn. And we will also share the Chinese version on the Clean Air Knowledge Hub of China office. And here's the structure of the policy transfer workshop. We invited both representatives and experts from the national government policy supporting team, as well as the city experience sharing from the local experts. And for the PRC national level air quality management experience, there will be two presentations. One is focused on the planning. We invite the air division director from the Chinese Academy of Environmental Planning, who supports the MEE to develop the National Clean Air Action Plan and do the assessment for the country. And we also invite the Chinese Research Academic of Environmental Science team, also the director of Air Division of this institution, to give a technical support experience for key cities and regions in China. This is the background of this presentation is that Prime Minister Li Keqiang announced the national level technical support program. It's a very big program to support Beijing, Tianjin, and surrounding 26 cities that with the poorest air quality to improve their air quality, and they all did a very good job. And we also select 4 cities from China to share their local experience because the TA team decided that we don't want to we don't want like city like Beijing, because other cities may not have the resources and capacity. So we invite the neighboring city, Beijing, of Beijing is at Tianjin, and we also invite the technical team support Tianjin under the Prime Minister research program to introduce how they do the science-based clean air action plan. And we also invite another city, which is also one of those cities, is Jining from Shandong province, and Tsinghua University technical team supported their local air quality management policy making, including the emission inventory and source apportionment, for example. And Jining is also a smaller city comparing to other cities that can also provide experience on some smaller sector like the brick kilns. They also have some experience on that. Shenzhen is a typical city with very good high quality economic and social development. Meanwhile, they have the best. They are also one city that with the best air quality in China that can achieving the similar level with European cities. And Chengdu is the cities that that's surrounded by mountains, so they have the biggest challenge to deal with air pollution as a mecca city surrounded by mountains, and they have put great effort to achieve better air quality, so they will also share their experience with other participating cities. And on the day 2, we will provide the sector specified policy standards and city practice. This is not like the day 1. Day 1 will be more general air quality management experience. And for day 2, we more focus on the key sectors that identified based on the needs of 7 cities under this TA. So those sectors will cover the energy, the transport, the clean cooking and heating, agricultural waste utilization, and also the solid waste management in urban and suburban areas, as well as the bronchial sector. And we engaged sector experts to deliver these presentations, and they also will compile the information based on their partnership with other cities. So we will also see the city practice from day 2's agenda. And here is an example of the city case study we will develop after the virtual event. The Chinese part and English part provides the similar information. So we will have basic information on the city and what's the program of the city and what has been done there, and the key factors or successful factors that they have to achieve better air quality. And here's an example of the learning portal that we will upload after the virtual workshop. And we also propose to have a technology fair in conjunction with the policy transfer workshop. Also invite the technology suppliers to share their technologies, which are selected from the best suppliers in China, with the assistance and help and suggestions from the sector experts that we engaged. And on the day 3, the sector experts will introduce, and we also can consider that technical training based on the toolkits of the toolkits developed under this TA. And after those training presentations, the representatives from the selected sectors, the technology suppliers, we will also present their technologies. It's also important to mention that we can have more suppliers' information and their technology materials on the website that we will be able to see and viewing during this 3 days event. Here is an example of the toolkits developed under this TA to provide comprehensive technology information for based on the needs for those selected key sectors. We will have a very detailed information on what kind of technologies are the best to provide the technical solutions for different programs. And we also consider the cost as a very important angle. So the recommendation will be based on the cost-effective perspective. And this is the last slide from my side. Then my colleague Wei Hao is going to share and take over. Wei Hao, please take over the slide sharing and introduce how we are going to use the website and meeting platform.
Okay, thank you, Wei. And, good afternoon, everyone. This is Zhang Wei Hao from Clean Asia China office, and I'm sharing my PPT. So can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I'll introduce the platforms very briefly. For the upcoming event, we have these two platforms, and they are very easy to use. And one is Zoom. So I think most people are familiar with it. It's for the invitees from 5 Asian countries to participate in the virtual workshop. And during the Q&A session of each day, the participants can walk and can talk with the experts in real time. And the participants can also ask questions in the chat box of Zoom anytime during the workshop, just like this time. The moderator will tell speakers the selected questions during Q&A session, and the Zoom capacity is 500. And the other platform is the website that we are building right now to serve the virtual workshop. And it has 3 main functions. The first is that all the visitors can watch the live meetings in 3 days and watch the replay afterwards. And the second is in the technology fair, visitors can browse the posters of enterprises in 6 sectors and download the posters after registration. And during the workshop every day, the moderator will remind the audience to visit the technology fair. And the third is, if visitors have any question, they can type their questions on the Q&A page. And after we screen the question, we will also post them and tell the speakers, and the speakers can answer during the Q&A session or after the workshop. And next, let's see the examples of 3 functions. And this is a picture of the homepage. We can watch each meeting in the live room by clicking the meeting. And if we click the plenary first, we can read the agenda. And this is just an example. The version is very old. Then we can click the live. Thus, we can watch the live meetings in Mandarin and English. And prior to the meeting date, we can see a countdown here. And if we click the breakout session on day 3, this page will come out, and we need to choose the meeting to watch and click the details. The next page is also agenda, and then just click the live. Here the page of the technology fair. 6 sectors are exhibited. When the cursor is on it, it will be highlighted. The enterprises, and after clicking, the enterprise list will be shown. And for example, after clicking the agricultural waste utilization, we'll see this list. And then after a very simple registration, we can open each poster by clicking the company name and then download the posters as you will. And on the website, although visitors cannot talk with experts during the Q&A session when watching the live meeting, visitors can use the function of ask a question in the live room and in the Q&A page. When watching the live meeting, by clicking ask a question, visitors can choose which expert to ask at first. And after choosing the expert, visitor can type their questions. So the operation is the same in the Q&A page. After we screen questions, the appropriate questions will be posted on the page. We can see the latest question here. And the answers from experts will be provided soon afterwards. And above are the 3 main functions of 2 platforms. To sum up, we are trying to make these 2 platforms very easy for everyone to use. And we hope all the participants can have a good use experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wei Han. Thank you, Wei, as well for the presentations. I think that's really useful just to give a bit of a flavor of what we have coming up. And we will, of course, remind people in terms of how to use the platform on the day as well. So don't worry, you don't need to remember it all from today, but it's useful to understand what we will be covering and the sorts of sessions that will be available. And it should be a really interesting few days, I think, for us hear more about the technologies and policies and sort of lessons learned from other countries. So very useful. And I just want to remind everyone the invitation, the link for the registration has been included in the chat box. There will also be, we can also email it out as well and share further details, but please, I just encourage everyone to sign up, join, the sessions you can. Of course, it's a big commitment over 3 days, but 3 half days, but we're hopeful that as many of you as possible can join to get some benefits. So I will now move on to the final session, and really just a short sort of wrap-up session from ourselves in terms of next steps and activities for the TA contract, and really then just an opportunity to sort of give you a flavour of what's coming up. So I will hand you back to Glinda, and thanks again for all of the interactions so far.
Thank you very much, Ben, and to our participants in the TA, and also for those on Zoom right now. We actually still have several more activities until September this year. So I asked my colleague to please move to this to the Gantt chart that I have. So as mentioned earlier, some city level studies will be completed, the ones for Vietnam in May. And under this TA, we actually are working with the cities to develop a communications plan and an awareness raising plan. And in addition to the plan, we're going to demonstrate, have a pilot demonstration of a small campaign that we will do together with the cities. This will happen from May to August. And as you have heard from my colleagues from the China office, next week we are going to have the air quality, what we call the Asia Clean Air Exchange, which is a 3 half days of air quality policy transfer and technology fair. That's on the 24th to the 26th. So please sign up and register. As you can see, the platform is quite exciting, and we have lined up private entrepreneurs and experts on technologies for 6 key sectors, air pollution sectors that where we need to address, where we need technology and policy measures. And following up on the technology fair, after you have these overviews in the technology fair, we will also have city-focused deep dives and technology trainings. So we will line up about 7 to 8 technology training sessions, and we will ensure that the cities interested to be part of these technology trainings will be invited to participate. And we're aiming at about 30 participants per city for each of the for these technology trainings. So watch out for this. And then, of course, we'll prepare the city-level clean air action plans from June to August. And as mentioned, this modification of the approach we're taking in our key Pakistan cities, which is road mapping of air quality management actions. And at the end, in September, we are going to come together again for a final regional workshop. Before I call on Karma for her closing remarks, I'd like to request my colleagues to put in the chat box the link to the evaluation form, so that we'd like to invite you to please let us know how we did, how we can improve our next knowledge sharing events and sessions. So now I'd like to call on the project officer for this TA for her closing remarks, Karma Yangzom. Over to you, Karma.
Thank you, Glenda. And thank you so much. We still have a huge number of participants staying on, even though this event was, 3 hours. So many thanks for staying on. And I think we had a lot of rich discussions, and it was really interesting to hear about the the findings from the studies carried out in each of the cities. And many thanks to Ricardo, Clean Air Asia, and the national teams in each of the cities. I think we have collected some very good information, and this is proven by the feedback that we received from the reactors. And a special thanks to our reactors who agreed to take part in with the very last minute request that we made. So thank you so much for that. And so overall, I think we didn't have any major objections from the reactors. I think everybody agreed on the issues that were identified and the proposed actions. And we heard from Ms. Cordelia on the La Trinidad Clean Air Action Plan, and she said this is a very good takeoff point, and appreciated the work done on trying to connect the national level policies with the local level actions. So very encouraging. And for Mongolia, we heard from Bulgan and her comments on the importance of the economic costs for the Clean Air Action Plans. So it's looks like everything that is being proposed is it's very much in line with the reality of the issues in Erdenet city, but important that we take care of the economic costs of the action plans, and which is very much in the plan for next steps under this TA. We did not have a reactor for Faridpur, unfortunately, but I think we still got very useful information from Tohidul. Thank you very much. I think every city is quite unique with its issues, and in Faridpur, it's a mix of the power plant, transport, the bricklin. So there is a mix of issues there, and we have identified solutions. And for the cities in Vietnam, so many thanks to my colleague Phuc for your feedback. And I think basically you agreed with the points that were made by Dr. Thuy, and you had suggested, you had highlighted one particular point on incentivizing policy for public, investment in public transport. So I think this is something which is very well noted. And then we heard about the feedback on the Pakistan cities, from our colleague Kiyoshi, and also from Asif, our colleague in the Pakistan resident mission. So thank you very much again for your feedback. And as mentioned by Kiyoshi, it's good that we are working on these action plans, but most important, of course, is to have government ownership. And we need to find ways and be creative in encouraging the government to take ownership of these plans. And there are a lot of, but it's encouraging that there are a lot of other investment projects going on in Pakistan, which will directly or indirectly contribute to air pollution reduction. And we got some very good insights from engineer Jundi, if I got the name correctly, sorry if I got it wrong, but I think it was very useful to get your insights on there was a lot of information in what you provided, and how to sustain the gains that we made during the COVID pandemic. And also you mentioned the institutional level coordination, linkage between the national and the local level plans and the sectoral plans. So thank you very much for your insights. And we have the virtual technology fair coming up, as we learned, and looking forward to seeing everybody there again. And as presented by Glenda in the end, so we still have a lot of activities going on. So this is a very busy period for the TA team. And in the final regional workshop that Glenda mentioned in September 2022, so I look forward, and maybe it can actually be an in-person event. So since things are improving with the COVID situation. So with that, I would again like to thank everybody, and thank you so much to Ricardo, Clean Air Asia, and all our the TA consultants for putting this workshop together, this regional meeting. And thank you for all the hard work. I know it's a lot of late nights and early mornings that you're spending on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. Just a final thanks then from my side, obviously, to all of the presenters and participants for all of your interactions, and also just a big thank you also to the Clean Air Asia team who have been doing all of the organisation behind the scenes here, so with coordination, etc. So with that, I will draw the meeting to a close. We will be sharing all of the presentations. Please have a look at the evaluation form that's been shared. Again, your feedback is really valuable for future events, and please sign up for next week's Policy and Technology Fair. So with that, we'll draw it to a close and have a good afternoon or evening wherever you are. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to
you.
my colleagues from Pakistan, especially the DG from APEA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.